Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, helping you to find jargon-free information before choosing a professional to help solve your problems and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stuart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Retirement conversation. And on this segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so pleased to say that we finally have Investment Fiduciary Gene CHAAS, Managing Partner of Delaware Avenue Advisors, and he's calling in all the way from sunny Buffalo, New York. Now, Gene, who has a wealth of experience in the area of retirement and financial planning, will be talking to you today about how to visualize your retirement finances. So, if you are one of the many people approaching retirement age in the Buffalo, New York area, it might be just a good idea to down tools, log out of Facebook, stop the Twittering, Instagramming, or anything else you happen to be doing, and you might even want to grab a notepad and pen and get ready to take some notes as we listen in to what Gene has to share with you today. So with that said, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Gene.
Oh, Stuart, it's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
You are so welcome, Gene. It's our pleasure to have you on the show. We know just how busy you are. So let's just jump feet first in. Briefly, please describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
Well, Stuart, most of our existing clients are either retirees or they've engaged us to help them plan as pre-retirees. Mm-hmm. So really, and the third section of our business is 401k. So we talk to in-place workers saving for retirement. So really, the people we talk to all have a common concern, and that is, am I saving enough for retirement? How do I picture my retirement savings? What do I have to do to make sure I'm comfortably retired?
So keeping in mind then, Gene, that anything you share with us today is not legal advice, it's not therapeutic advice or even legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of disseminating information. So could you just expand on that in your own words very briefly so that everybody is absolutely clear what we're doing today?
Yeah, indeed. Today, no legal or tax advice, not even investment advice in a sense. It's more performance advice. Performance in terms of how do you picture yourself retiring? And what drives this, Stuart, is that so many people here in America are facing what we call a retirement crisis. And I've met with some of these people.
Okay, Gene, so with that said then, and for those people who are listening in right now and they are approaching retirement age, what's the most common misconception? And I understand there must be many misconceptions that you come across on a regular basis, but what's the most common misconception they have surrounding the topic of visualizing their retirement finances?
Oh, that's easy, Stuart. And this is really what drives my topic today. And this is why I talk about performance, and I talk about visualization, sort of athletic performance. This is not financial advice. This is more coaching advice. And the most common misperception I see is that people don't think they'll ever have enough to retire. And part of the reason is we've had TV commercials. I don't know if you recall, I won't name the company, rolling this monster egg down the street, this big retirement nest egg. That was the commercial. And so most people, many of us can't perceive ourselves to have this huge $1 million nest egg when we retire. So what happens is, this is the common misperception and the performance shortfall. What happens is, for the, middle income worker bee who's, somebody tells them, oh, you have to have $1 million to retire and you can only, all that, they almost give up on retirement and resign themselves to working forever. Now, I know that's true because I've talked to those people. So, the trouble with that is a lot of retirement tips you may hear out there, and there's actually been a book published, The 4% Rule, so it's very popular advice. But a lot of those tips are really designed for those people who are upper middle income, the professionals among us, the doctors, the lawyers, who will have the ability to amass $1 million+ over their lifetimes. The trouble with that advice is it doesn't filter down to the rest of us who maybe aren't of that. We're not earning. We don't have the earning capability to really do that. So that's the most common misperception surrounding retirement is, I'm not going to be able to save as much as I need to. And again, from my perspective, it isn't really a numerical issue. It's more of a performance emotional issue. Is it shuts them down completely, and they absolutely don't do anything for retirement or do the bare minimum, right? So it sets up a failure before they've even tried to succeed. That's the most common misperception.
So hold on to that thought for a moment then, Gene. And based on what you just shared with us, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, please share an example or a case study, so to speak, of how you have helped or how you would even go about helping somebody who had that misconception or that challenge you just described. And what kind of transformational results you were able to, or in general, would be able to gain for them?
Well, the first thing, by the way, most of the clients that I've listened to that suffer from this affliction, if you want to call it that, of misconception, if you want to call it that, aren't direct clients of the firm. They're clients of 401ks that we cater to. So they're workers in the workforce. We go out to the workplace and we do seminars for them. And they come back to me and say, I don't want to do anything because I'm never going to be able to save enough money to retire. And my first point to them is, who told you how much you need to have? Well, I saw on TV, or I heard from someone, or that I have to have $1 million. I'm like, that's not the way it works. Number one, you've got to change how you view your retirement. I said, your retirement is going to, the finances in your retirement, I said, try to visualize those as not one big pool of money. Try to visualize your retirement as a series of income streams that are given to you. And one we get here in the States, like many countries do, one is Social Security. So as a worker here in the States, we're all putting into the system, and we can talk about whether it's a safe system or an unsafe, a stable, unstable, but it is a pay-as-you-go system, and it's based on demographics and many workers paying into the system. But there's one stream of income we're all going to receive in retirement, right? So I try to break them down from the, I can't, the insurmountable mountain of money they have to have into, no. You have to have buckets of money that are providing you income, one of which is given to you by Social Security. Another one may be given to you by your ability to save through a corporate retirement plan. A third one may be given to you by yourself in your ability to save in your own personal savings. So I think literally, Stuart, that one, again, it's visualization, getting them off that picturing that they have to amass this huge 7-figure portfolio into the fact that, look, it's going to be a series of income streams coming to you. It makes it doable for them. They can start visualizing, oh my gosh, I can retire when I'm 65. I don't have to work till I die. And again, it helps a ton in getting them to do what they need to do today to ensure a healthy retirement, both mentally and physically, obviously. Because again, I say it's performance visualization. This isn't legal advice. This isn't tax advice. It isn't even investment advice. It's the advice of you have to picture it as multiple legs of a stool, right? So if you had a stool with one leg, a unicycle for that matter, is that a very stable stool? It's not. It's a unicycle. I can't ride one, Stuart. Maybe you can, but I couldn't. I'd be on my head in no time at all. If I put another leg under my stool, I'm a bit more stable, but not really stable. If I put a third leg in my stool, a third income or annuity stream in my stool, okay, now I've got a tripod and I'm relatively stable. And clearly as I add more income streams, the more stable my retirement becomes. Secondly this is advice from Warren Buffett in a different context. Don't compare your situation to other people. It's really important from a performance point of view, and again, athletes would understand this, but it's important from a performance point of view to only look at your own stuff. Don't compare it to your coworkers, your friends, whoever. Look at your own stuff and keep it that way, because therefore, intellectually and emotionally, you're clean. you can make good decisions, and you're not comparing yourself. And again, the comparisons in the investment world, what we find is the comparisons set you up for some negative reinforcement. And we don't like to do that. It doesn't help people perform well, right?
So, Gene, this is some really great insights, or these are some really great insights that you're sharing with our listeners today. So thank you so much for that. Allow me just to remind our listeners that we are listening to Investment Fiduciary Gene CHAAS, managing partner of Delaware Avenue Advisors in Buffalo, New York. And he's here today, ladies and gentlemen, talking about how to visualize your retirement finances. Now, with that in mind, Gene, and for those people who are approaching retirement age and they're listening in right now, what's one of the many pitfalls or misguided truths that they need to be aware of, no matter what situation they find themselves in?
Well, the one is that I can't retire, or I'll never have enough to retire, right? And again, I'm talking about certain. By the way, if I may backtrack just a little bit, when I say that you can't compare yourself to other people, for some of us, Stuart, the 4% rule works. I'm talking to professionals, corporate executives, doctors. They can see themselves amassing, and matter of fact, by the time they're 45 or 50 or 55, they've begun to amass the 7-figure type portfolio. So that's my whole point is, we have to be careful about how we as professionals offer, conceptual retirement advice to people because, different advice falls on different ears differently. And that's the whole point. We're so unique. So some of us can use the 4% rule and say, oh yeah, I know I need 60,000 a year and, 60,000, 4%. Okay, and we back into a number that way. Some of us can avail ourselves of that. So the 4% rule, which is again, an academically tested rule, works. We know it works. What we're talking about here is when some people, when they hear that and they do the math in their head and they come up with 1.2, 2.3, they know that they're not going to have $1 million when they're retired. And it stops them from doing anything. Why should I do anything? Because I just can't get it done. And it sets them up for failure. So again, that to me seems to be the most important thing as to when you talk to somebody as a professional, as an advisor, and I talk to someone, it's very important to me to understand their emotional disposition and their financial means to offer them the best retirement advice in terms of their visualization to ensure that they act accordingly, right? So it's just a matter of how to incent that person, how to create, again, sort of like athletics, how to create them, how to create good performance from them, in terms of budgeting and planning, right? So that's the main thing we find is that people are scared, they're worried, they see the press, retirement crisis, we hear it all the time, and people wonder, do I have enough? Do I have enough? Enough is a very individual question. Right. The other issue we see all the time is people have different styles of lifestyles, right? Some of us spend more than others. Some of us have, there's choices we make and compromises we make all the time. So once again, we can't offer anyone packaged, retirement advice. We have to make it a very individual type scenario. And I think that's the most important thing to bring out to anyone is your retirement visualization, your retirement planning, if you will, the nuts and bolts of it, it's all just for you. You can't compare it to your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, your coworker, your neighbor, or anybody else. It's just for you. And I think when we do that, and when we provide them advice, and we provide them some goals, monthly, annual savings goals and like this, and we parse it down. It's just like anything else. We parse it down to what does it take? What do I have to do every day or every week or every paycheck for that matter to ensure that I meet a 20-year goal, right? It's just like any other goal setting. You've got to take the big picture and parse it down to things that I can affect daily to make sure that goal happens. And to do that, of course, I have to be confident that I'm going to achieve that goal if I do what I got to do. And that's where I see the big issue, really do, especially among younger workers, workers who aren't making a lot of money these days. And our wages are increasing as a nation, but, wage growth we haven't seen in, 10 years now, So Many of us have been working for the same amount of money for many, many years, and it's harder to conceptualize. How am I going to save?
Okay, Gene, let's just switch gears for a moment. When you think about all the people who you've helped in the past, the people who you've helped to create the transformation that they were looking for when they initially reached out to you for your help. Personally now, on a deep down personal level, what does that give you? What does it, how does it make you feel when you're able to help those people achieve their objectives?
Well, as a natural human being, right? I say natural human being. I mean, we feel good when we help other people, right? Even us men who aren't the most maternal among us, right? Females are more maternal than we are. They're more helping, but still, any of us as natural human souls, when we help other people, and most importantly, when we enable and empower others to help themselves, don't give them fish, teach them to fish is the old adage, and it's so true. And we love financial planners. I think all of us do this because we love to teach people how to fish, right? We can give you fish and we can help you fish, but we really want you to understand how to fish and really do it on your own. And in fact, and mentally, you have to do it on your own. Mentally, it's really up to you. We can help you with the nuts and the bolts, right, and the little tactical choices. But strategically, we want to help them to fish, right? So it's an immensely gratifying place to be. Similar to, although a different level, of course, but it's similar to, the doctor that fixes someone. It's the same sense of satisfaction. We help people. That's what we do.
So spend a brief moment telling us a little bit about your backstory then, Gene, and especially your formal education and your experience as it relates to financial planning.
Stuart, I think my informal education of being out on my own at 17, being a soldier for many years, seeing the world, I somehow think my informal education provides more substance than my formal education.
I totally understand that. Totally understand that. Yeah.
But formally speaking, my degrees are in political science, and my master's degree is actually in international political economy. Today, currently, however, I hold a CFA charter, Chartered Financial Analyst. I'm a charter holder. And because of that, the local state college has asked me to teach corporate finance, investment management, personal finance, and also estate planning. Not all at once, by the way, different semesters. So, like most of us in this business, we want to stay currently educated. We want to keep our minds sharp. We want to stay ahead of trends. And I find teaching to be a great way to do that. Not only that, Stuart, but I'm able to access young minds and hear their concerns and answer their questions and see what they're thinking, which again, oddly enough, somehow when I talk to my 60 or 70-year-old clients, all that has relevance, right? So it's not just your formal education, it's how you approach things, and it's your informal stuff that you bring to the table. Because when you talk about retirement planning, I'm a portfolio manager by training, right? But the things we're talking about today aren't picking stocks or picking funds or whatever. It's different. It's more performance and it's softer, but I think it's as important, if not more important, than who's handling your money. What mutual fund do you have? To me, these things are the most important things. The emotional, performance-driven, the visualizations, that is very important for all of us to make sure that we stay on track and we do what we're supposed to be doing and we don't get discouraged.
So, Jane, you mentioned something, who's handling your money, and that's kind of a good segue into my next question. Retirement and planning your retirement, the whole financial plan, putting that together and trusting somebody with that. What are some of the things our listeners should look out for when they're looking for that professional guidance from an investment fiduciary? What are some of the things, just some quick fire bullet points that could be really useful for them?
Well, number one, let me start with the definition of an investment fiduciary, okay? Because we're a rare breed, but becoming much, much less rare. Whereas 25 years ago, when I started in this business, we didn't really have investment fiduciaries. Well, we had money management, but most of us, Stuart, start off in this business, certainly back in the 90s and the 80s, as commissioned salespeople, right? That was the model. That model still exists out there. So I think the most important thing to say to listeners and or to anyone really, and this is popular advice because it's given a lot of places, is how are you compensated, right? You ask that person, how are you compensated? Most fiduciaries are not compensated by commission. In fact, legally, the legal standard is if you're a commission salesperson, we cannot hold you to a fiduciary standard. We don't hold you that standard of you're going to provide advice that is only in the benefit of that person, that you don't benefit at all from the advice. Now, you already know how many of us benefit from the advice. We feel good about it. And yes, we make a little bit of living doing it, but we feel good about giving the advice because we know it's good advice and it helps people perform, right? So that's the most important thing. You ask that planner, how are you compensated? What are your credentials? So I have a designation, right? There's another one, CFP, Certified Financial Planner. I think the most important thing, or one of the most important things about these designations, especially Chartered Financial Analyst and Certified Financial Planner, is not the body of knowledge that we have access to in our little brains. It's the code of ethics that we bring to the table, right? So it's not only understanding the investment markets and understanding emotions of clients, but it's also staying on the right side of things, being the ethical advisor, always doing things in the best interest of the person you're speaking to, which is different than the next person that comes in the door and the next person. So everyone's unique. So for most of us, I would say, ask that professional, how are you compensated? What are your credentials, right? Do you have any designations? And I would say Certified Financial Planner is a very good designation, right? Chartered Financial Analyst, most of us don't talk to individual clients. Most Chartered Financial Analysts run mutual funds that are sort of off the front lines in a way. But there's more and more of us that are actually wealth managers, that are out there in the front lines talking to individual clients, not just big institutions, right? So we bring ethics. That's what it really is.
Okay, so I could ask those questions. Obviously, speaking on behalf of our listeners, I could ask those questions, but how would I be able to check that? They could say, yeah, I'm a certified financial planner, but where would I go to check that? Okay,
so when you say a certified financial planner, you have to be registered as a certified financial planner. So there's a registration and there's a form you can check online to see if they are. Also, you can ask that person what their SEC CRD numbers are. I know it's nomenclature, but you can go online to, I forget the website right now. It's FINRA, FINRA, and you can do a broker check. In fact, I would say to anybody, Google FINRA broker check. And you can put my name in there, right? Spell my last name properly with 2 A's. You put my name in there, and my records pop up. So anyone who's doing this as a professional is registered with the government, is registered with some of us are registered with and members of a professional society. Both of those things provide a check to the consumer that they can go online, they can check my credentials, they can check my registrations with the SEC, FINRA, actually, the regulatory agency, quasi-government agency. They can see if I have any black marks on my record, if I've ever been sued, and any of those things. So it's easy to go online these days, especially, very easy to go online and double check what that person's telling you, right? And you want to make sure that what you've been told and what you see are identical.
Okay, Gene, so far we've spoken about how people think they don't have enough to retire on. That was one of the misconceptions that you spoke about. You also went on to speak about some of the pitfalls that are out there, people thinking they can't retire, they won't have enough money, and you expressed just how worried and scared they are. And then eventually you gave some great insights on questions that people should ask when they're looking for professional guidance with their financial planning, where you mentioned things like, how are you compensated? That's a good question to ask. These should be ethical advisors, and what are your credentials, and other great questions to ask. And then you just shared, lastly, how to actually verify their credentials. And we'll make sure that that link for that website where you can check the credentials is on the website underneath your show. So with all of that, you shared some amazing insights with us today. For those people who are out there and they are approaching retirement age and they're listening in right now, then Gene, What final thoughts would you like to leave them with before we finish up with our last question for today?
Well, Stuart, here's the funny thing. This is kind of a weird thing to share with you, but I've been overweight most of my life, right? But I'm getting here at my mid-50s. I need to be very conscious of that. To me, retirement planning for yourself is like dieting. It's a simple numerical exercise, right? It's not fun to do sometimes, but you know you have to do it, right? So the best tip of advice is, take it seriously. And it is a discipline. It really is. It's like dieting. It is a discipline, and you have to maintain that discipline for long periods of time. But once you do that, you will achieve the success that you want. And again, your success is different than my success, is different from the other person's success. So we have to define that very individually. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. It is a discipline. And it's a discipline that you really need to take seriously to ensure that when you get of age, you have done the best job you can of converting your human labor into capital.
Well, it's been a blast with you today, Gene. I'm sure that anyone who's been listening in will feel that they've received a ton of great insights, a lot of value. However, if they want to know even more, if they feel that, I need to know more about how to visualize my retirement finances, if that's the case, then Gene, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, certainly we have a website, Delaware Ave Advisors. We shorten the word Avenue in that website name. They can find me on LinkedIn, as we found each other, Stuart. And they can call us on a toll-free number anytime they want to, 800-404-9636. So it's easy to contact us in many ways, either online or directly by a phone call.
So let me just eliminate any risk for anybody who feels, this Gene guy, he sounds cool, he shared a lot of great information, and I'm kind of sat on the fence. I want to pick up the phone and give a call. However, I'm a little bit skeptical about what's going to happen when I do make that call. So please, just briefly explain what will exactly happen when they make that call to that toll-free number then, Gene?
Well, Stuart, we'll have a conversation on the phone to see if I can be of service to that person, if I can actually help them, empower them to do what they want to do. We set up a meeting, right? And that meeting is complimentary in a way. It's really to decide if you and I can work together, because not all of us work together well. And there's many people who do what I do. And certainly you may find someone who's a better personality fit for you. But that initial interview is for us to kind of test the waters. Can we work well together? Would I feel comfortable working with this person for a long period of time? Because most of our engagements as professionals are for longer periods of time. They're not one-offs. Some are just one-offs, to be sure. So there's no risk in that transaction. The risk is you will spend some of your time, some of your life, meeting with someone, hopefully gaining some good information, even if you don't consummate that relationship. You know what I mean? So there's no risk to it whatsoever. You get a free consultation out of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have had the pleasure, the absolute honor of listening to Investment Fiduciary Gene CHAAS. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Gene. You have certainly, without a doubt, demonstrated that you are a true educator, advocate, and, most importantly, a trustworthy advisor for your clients' success. So thank you so much.
Stuart, our conversation has been my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
You are so welcome, my friend. And I'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to you. Yes, you, our listener. Maybe you are approaching retirement age and you're considering your options for retirement. Well, after listening to Gene today, I'm sure that you will feel that you're in a good place to get started. So thank you for joining us on this very insightful and informative discussion with a leading investment fiduciary in the Buffalo, New York area today. Again, just as a final reminder, his name is Gene CHAAS. Make sure you do check him out. Give him a call. There's a toll-free number. There are some great resources on his website. I'm sure that whatever you do decide to do, that after listening to Gene for such a it was just a short amount of time today. We could have spent hours, but after listening to him today, I'm sure that you're going to be in a great place to get started. So, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, folks. Gene, you just want to say a final goodbye?
Yeah. Good luck to everybody, and up your assets. Everyone do some diligent planning.
I'm glad you said assets. Okay.
Assets, of course. Stuart, it's been my pleasure. Indeed, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Gene. And just
You're
as
very
a reminder,
welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. And just as a final reminder, my name is Stuart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly again with some more leading financial planning professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Retirement Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.